Hi, I'm MZ, your lifelong point and click lover who also dabbles in League. Please don't judge me, but I've never tried an ARPG before. Actually, it came to light that I've actually not played many genres before, and this is where we're starting. I recently became Elden Lord, and since doing that, I've been inspired to try other games that I would not normally try, and today's victim is Path of Exile 2. So maybe a tiny lie that I've never played an ARPG before. I dabbled in Dungeon Siege many, many moons ago, but never really knew how to play and would always run around the same dungeon over and over again, never making any progress. So I thought, let's double check there is no more ARPGs that I've actually played. So I consulted the expert, which is obviously Reddit, where I found this really, really long list of games that I do not recognize. So other than my tiny dalliance with Dungeon Siege, I am not a liar. So today, we're going to change that. So my friend recommended Path of Exile 2 because it's actually one of their favorite games. They recommended it to me. They sent me a trailer of the Fate of the Val. I saw gore. I went, is it actually that gory? My friend said yes. I immediately went, say less. Added it to my wish list because I'm a sucker for gory horror stuff. I left it there for a sec. But then a couple of days later, I receive a message from this same friend who tells me while I'm out Christmas shopping with my sister that, oh, by the way, there's a free weekend for Path of Exile 2 this weekend. If you want to try it. I said, bet. So I downloaded it with zero idea of what I was walking into. I'd read nothing. I just watched this short trailer. And this is how it went, and all of my thoughts and feelings about it as a new player of ARPGs. My first note is that it took forever to download. I only got to play 2 hours on the first day because I just didn't realize how big the game was. And unfortunately, I just wasn't prepared. I wasn't planning to play. I had other stuff on. It's Christmas time, all that jazz. I found out last minute. I hadn't been able to set up the download before I left the house to go shopping with my sister. Got home, started the download. It was already like 4 p.m. and it pops up telling me that it's going to be like initially 6 hours. It did drop down to about 4.5. That was a little bit annoying. I wish there'd have been a way like that I could have fixed that. I'm okay with it being like a massive game. That's not a big deal to me. It isn't my favorite. I would have liked if there was a way that I could have partial downloaded the game, because in a free weekend, there was no way I was going to make it through the entire game. But I guess it meant that I had it downloaded if I want to continue playing after. So I very impatiently waited for it to be done. I stared at it for most of the time because I'm really stubborn like that, and that's just what I do. Now, I'm going to mention right off the bat here, I never planned to make this video. I started playing the game. I basically was like, I have a lot of thoughts about this as a first-time player, and maybe people will care. So I didn't actually record my first few hours of gameplay. We're kind of going to give you a recap while random gameplay plays in the background for a minute. But I'm hoping y'all won't mind, because at least you know this is coming very spontaneously from my soul. So the game completes its download. Yay, we made it. First hurdle, done. Then it goes, what class do you want to be, MZ? I go, a sorceress. Partly because it was recommended to my friend that I'd probably have a little bit of better time with my first playthrough playing as a sorceress, but also because I love playing a magical girl, and you will pry spellcasting out of my cold dead hands. I was a little surprised that after I selected my sorceress that there was no character customization. I do understand this is likely to save resources. My computer was already freaking out at times during gameplay, and I imagine adding any customization would make that worse. I just would like to add a little something of myself in the character, normally red hair to be honest. I don't mind these characters actually being hard set on reflection now that I've completed what I played. It does add to the story a little bit with the way that it's laid out, and also the fact that they gave your character voice lines.
These walls are oppressive.
And I think the voice lines match so perfectly to the visual of the character. I'll loop back to the voice acting because I do think the voice acting was fantastic. It was a great detail, and I'm not mad that I lost out on character customization for that element. That aside, we then get to the screen where it goes, hey, select the mode you want to play in. And this is where it dawned on me I had no idea what I was doing. The mode selection defaulted me to Fate of the Val. This is where the new league at the time was taking place, but at this point, I don't know what a league is, and I don't know what Fate of the Val means. I actually thought this was a DLC because of the trailer my friend had sent me, so I was under the impression that I wasn't picking that. I did see basic in the options, however, it wasn't like the suggested option, and I would have thought the option it's popping up for me is the option I should be picking as a new player, and my friend kind of implied that that was not the case, and I should pick basic. So before I could even load in, I did have to text my friend and be like, hey, which one of these am I picking? Because basic seems like the right answer, but it's telling me Fate of the Vow. I hear y'all saying there are descriptions on them, and there were, but I'm a brand new player to the genre. I didn't really understand what the descriptions were trying to tell me. It felt like I was reading, but unable to understand what it was trying to tell me. I was told to choose basic, but if I didn't have anyone to ask, what would I have done? I think this is like a hurdle that just could be so easily overcome by adding a little, we recommend this for new players in the description of the basic option. Or if they don't recommend that, give me an idea of what it is you do recommend. Am I supposed to jump straight into a league? That doesn't seem like the right option, but like I would like the game to give me that information. I'm sure if you've played this genre before, this choice seems really logical, but as somebody who's never played, I just don't think I should be needing to consult Google to enter the game. And I think this is a problem sometimes with some genres, and potentially the problem here is that there's an assumption here that I have a basic level of knowledge to understand this choice. I do not have that. I am brand new. So you're already setting a bar of like, I need a degree of knowledge about ARPGs. And this is where new players start to panic because they go, I don't understand this. And this is the first choice other than class. And it just kind of sucks that I think, oh, at this point as a new player, I'm going to have to go to Google. So here we get into the game, and I love the initial way the cutscene jumps in from the like menu selection opening. I love the way the animation kicks in. You basically narrowly escape being executed on the gallows, and you escape. You wash up in like a demo area, is what I'm going to kind of refer to it as, called the riverbank, and you find an injured gentleman who tells you first he's glad you're alive, which is nice. I don't think enough games do this where they're like, somebody's actually happy you lived. It was nice. And that basically there is a miller, and he's gone to Clearfell to tell them about a sickness that overcame the men that they were with. He was supposed to go to Mr. Injured Man, but something attacked him. We don't know what, but he's injured. That's his name, Injured Man. It makes sense. He then asks you in his dramatic dying breaths to go to Clearfell and find the miller.
I would appreciate it if you could... reach Clearfell.
Cool, we got you, Pookie. You died not in vain. We're going to sort that out. So I really like this the first interaction, actually. The voice acting for the guy was actually pretty good. It felt super dramatic. The way that he looked, the blood on him, the injury actually being quite visible, the corpses around him. It was just all the drama I needed to be like, I need to know what's going on here. Also, he's already dropped a little hint at a few things. It set the scene for what's going on pretty well. It left me with questions like, what got him? What's the sickness? Who's the miller? I'm invested already, and we haven't even made it past the first interaction. There's no cutscene here. It is just a conversation in the game. And I think that's really fantastic. So as soon as that conversation ends, the game starts taking you through basic tutorial things. How to move around. It hands you a basic weapon right near Injured Man for the character that you picked. So I got a staff. You then start moving through the area, and it starts giving you prompts. So, for example, how to attack against the drowned and the crabs, items and your storage and how to access your storage and how that works, potion use, and the skill tree fed to you very naturally. I'm just milling about, exploring around, getting these little pop-ups as and when it was appropriate. Like, for example, the flask, it comes up the first time you hit low health, it goes, hey, press this button and you can use a healing flask. I love tutorials like this. I like that I'm free to kind of do my thing, wander around. I do have a basic gaming level. I'm not a complete new gamer. So I get to kind of do my thing while also being given the information that's game specific. I really appreciate it being done this way because as well, like I was naturally able to utilize it in context of when I should be doing it. And that's super helpful because also I find that can be quite a hard thing to like figure out is like, when am I supposed to press to heal? What does it consider low health? I was introduced to checkpoints as I found my first one, and I also got provided a skill gem in a chest to start introducing the skill mechanic. The main issue I had with the tutorial for these is that I was being attacked or got attacked as I found these things So the prompt was coming up, but I actually missed it. I saw the checkpoint prompt and I just could not read it because I was being attacked. And I couldn't find anywhere to go and reread it. Maybe this is like a skill issue on my part, but it also never told me, hey, if you've missed a tutorial prompt, you can go find them here. So I don't know if I missed them, that they are just gone. It would have been nice to have the option to reread tutorial prompts because there was a few times, especially in like leveling up and using skill gems, where I would have liked to refer back to it. If there is a way to refer back to it, it would be nice if that was included, maybe at the very beginning of the tutorial, to be like, hey, this is how you move and this is how you access the things that we're telling you if you need them again. Again, it's a really like minor thing. A lot of players won't need it, but I would have just loved it to be stored somewhere for my like own viewing pleasure when the situation was less tense, especially with the next area we'd move into being a safe space. I'd have loved to have the option to kind of go, right, what did I just do? What's the information I've been given? Let me just slow it all down and just read through it real quick. So I'm pretty confident I spent way too long in this riverbank area. At this point, I'm not too worried about the time frame of the free weekend, and I just take the attitude of, there's a map. I want to open up the whole map. I'm going to search the whole place and unlock the whole map and fully open everything up. I basically hadn't realized at this point that things would respawn, maps would reload, and you'd have to re-explore it. I didn't know this yet. Again, maybe the game told me. I don't know. I might look really silly right now because it may have told me. But if it did, I missed it. I do think if it doesn't tell you, it would be lovely if that would be also a thing added at some point as a prompt, like, hey, this is kind of the basic mechanic of the game. You're going to clear an area. This area will reset on these instances happening. Again, it seems silly. If you've played this game, or you've played other ARPGs, you're sat there going, but of course it does. I don't know this yet. And I'm going to be in denial of this fact for a really long time, you will discover. But it's fine. I didn't mind it here. It's the initial area. I got to pick up loads of stuff. I got to get some really good practice in, opened some chests, came away with some good kit. I wasn't complaining. I did really like this area as someone who is coming from not knowing anything. It was expansive enough that I could practice. There were enough enemies here without me being entirely overwhelmed or feeling like I needed to reset the area to try again. Now, I see a clearing. You know how it goes when you see a clearing. There's a boss fight coming. I was prepared. I did not approach the clearing until I was ready. And the first boss emerges, and it's the bloated miller. The miller who I was sent to find? Well, this is one way for it to go. I think this set up the tone very well for everything else that would happen as we go along. This was an okay boss fight. As a sorceress, with the range that I had, I didn't really have to try. And I kind of wish I had to. The only attack that was a little bit like touch and go was the shockwave attack, where he would smash the log, but because there's such a build-up into it, it was very easy to move around. Maybe if I'd chosen another class, this fight would have been harder, but I was a little disappointed because I defeated the boss first go and then suddenly had this realization of, I beat my first boss fight so quickly, I didn't practice a thing. The only thing I'd done in this fight, I hadn't dodged at all. I'd actually just kited. Yes, I know the word kited, but that's from playing League. I kited a bit, cast spells. I just sat there a little bit like, oh, that's it. I do think this guy should get a little bit of a buff, and this is coming from somebody who is an ARPG baby, but I wanted to practice a little bit more on him and get more of the vibe of what a boss fight looks like. And this boss didn't do that for me. I'm still in a daze after the Miller situation, realizing I kind of steamrolled him. But I move on. I see the entrance to the Clearfell encampment. In I go. And here we meet a few NPCs. And I do think this part was a bit of a highlight for me. The characters I met, I immediately really liked. Even Finn, who gives devious vibes, but I trust him anyway. Because who doesn't love a bad boy? And he reminded me of Flynn Rider. Sue me. In the camp, you meet a few people. We meet Renly, the blacksmith. Previously mentioned Finn, the cheeky gambler, and Una. She is my favorite. I will do anything for her. I will do whatever she asks me to. I will die for this woman. She is our resident magical girl. I love that each character was designed and voice acted perfectly for who they were.
Yes? I understand you did what you had to. Please, let us not speak of it further.
It just added so much immersion to the world for me, and the motivation to go on the quests that they would give me. They were endearing and had a lot of dialogue options. I appreciate a game like this taking the time to curate a little encampment like this so well. I would be as bold as to say that this is when I was seated. I was like, I like this. This is the vibe. I want to give this more of my time. I like the artwork style as well, that when you went to speak to an NPC, you would see like this detailed character portrait of them as they spoke, the text on the screen. It just really pulled the whole thing together. I liked seeing the visuals of the NPCs like that. I liked that Renly, Una, and Finn all had their own dialogue options too. They didn't have the same option across all the NPCs. Nice little detail that I'm not just repeating things. And all the 3 NPCs had different bits of information that they were like stacking up to create this world for you. And I really liked that those interactions were feeding into the world. It made me want to talk to these NPCs. The overall design, dialogue, and voice acting pulled it all together for me so well. Also, all 3 of these NPCs that you meet sell and buy from the player. I'll admit it took me a second to understand how to sell. The buying was really easy, but the selling, I was looking for a separate tab to sell into, like a little sales tab or a sell option when speaking to them. It did take me a second to realize I need to just drag and drop the item into the open space in their shop. I don't think it would have hurt for there to be a pop-up box just to take me through how the shop works. It is a little bit babying, but trying to figure that out was just a little niggle that I was like, the quality, I just would have liked the help. I would quickly come to realize that I would not buy anything from these NPCs though. Only Una was bought from, and it was mostly Scrolls of Wisdom. No, it was all Scrolls of Wisdom. They were the only thing I purchased the entire act. Maybe I got lucky because I did get some drops that I think were pretty great. But once my equipment had reached a certain point, I was basically just selling things and kind of gaining a pool of money that I wasn't really spending. While in the camp, I did choose to take a bit of time here to actually look at the skill tree properly. It had prompted me about the skill tree while still in the riverbank area, but I was a little bit too nervous to stand and sit and read through it. And it's quite is probably an understatement. It's expansive. There's a lot going on. So I chose to like have a little look and see what there was for my character and the sorceresses. With it being so complicated, I did just decide to keep it really simple, mostly opting for spell damage with each of my levels. And I put a little into cast speed and a bit into the elemental magic boosts. It just felt the most familiar to me to other things that I'd played. I did recognize though pretty quick that if I wanted to come back in the future and construct an entirely different, even just a different sorceress, with the spells that were given to me as I went along through this playthrough, I realized there was different kinds of sorceresses I could build, and then adding the different classes, also probably being able to build in different ways. I was really pleased with the amount of options I could have had. I did choose to play it safe because I just wanted to try the game at this point. I did see there was also an option for sorceresses to have increased defense. Now, that felt like criminal to me, right? I'm so used to when I do choose to play a magical girl in literally anything to being the squishiest person there. And the thought of like a chunky sorceress, I do think I was very easily influenced as well here by what the game had already given me. I didn't know at this point how quickly I'd get new spells, so I put most of my investment into the spells I currently had. I'm not mad at it. I actually really liked the spells that I had, but most of what they'd given me was elemental. I found a staff with firebolt on it, so I guess I'm an elemental mage, right? I did enjoy being kind of basic though. I really liked the animations for a lot of like the fire, the like lightning. It was enjoyable, even if it was kind of lame and you're all screaming basic. I know, and I'm okay with it. Maybe it would have been nice to be shown or like had my options maybe hinted at a little more in the early part of the game. Like a cheap pop, like, hey, we have a few different kinds of magic in this game. Would have been cool. At this point, I knew I'd get more elemental spells, which is why I locked in on it. But when I came across another spell that turned corpses that were lying on the ground into scorpions that could attack for me. I was like, well, that would have been kind of cool to go that route. I noted it for next time, and I'm aware this game encourages replaying with the leagues and stuff. So I guess if I wanted to try a build like that, there'd be plenty of chances to do it in the future. We completed the injured man's quest of getting to Clearfell encampment, and we speak to Renly. He hands me another skill gem. Thank you, Renly, much appreciated. And this is what I would consider the end of the tutorial section. Now, there would be a few pop-ups in the next area, but these just are pop-ups that weren't relevant in the initial area because you hadn't been to the camp yet, like the portal, which I will mention again shortly. I talk to the different NPCs, and they begin to mention the Count. Renly mentions they are refugees of the Count's justice. Who is this Count? What is he doing? I already don't like him. Finn, when asked about the Count, adds the Count was rounding up people like him. He kept getting away, but the Count starts going after people he actually likes, and that's when he kind of becomes more concerned. He added the villagers kept defending the Count as well, but he wasn't sure why, and I, at this point, don't really know either. I loved this build-up of lore. I already do not like the Count. I don't know much yet at all. I know there's a sickness turning some people into creatures, a Count who seemingly lost his marbles, and all these nice folks don't like him, so I don't like him either. Hero mode activated. We're gonna save you all. I love that they've taken the time in Path of Exile 2 to give us real motivation to go and do these quests. I'm being asked by these really nice NPCs who have already kind of charmed me to go and do things that are part of this greater mystery that they've already fed to me quite a bit. And they've given me that drive to want to push the plot on. I want to do the things I'm being asked to do, and I don't feel begrudged about it. I want to know. So we move on to the next quest. Renly gives Treacherous Ground, which has us looking for a mud burrow to kill the Devourer inside, which has been stopping the guys in the encampment from leaving. They can't go anywhere. Apparently this is like a sneak attack kind of enemy and kind of just noms them for breakfast, I guess. Don't worry, folks. I got you. So, I head into Clearfell, honestly a little overconfident after the bloated Miller fight. And once again, I still don't know about the resets. So I go for the tactic of clearing everything and opening up the whole map, not knowing that it's gonna disappear. Let's not worry about it. So I go around the edges, moving into the center, just opening up the whole thing. I enjoyed this area. The enemies here were mostly rotting dead vibes. We had basic wolves, people, guards, all rotting, but the enemy that really charmed me here was the hags. I really liked this mechanic that they would always be found with this gaggle of imps, and that they could resurrect those imps as well as do regular attacks. I liked the cross-enemy interaction. I don't think we see that enough in games, and it's a tiny thing, but it was a really nice surprise. When I saw the hag resurrect these little imps, I'm like, oh, I know who the real enemy is here, because the imps might have been the ones jumping me, but she was the one I needed to kill. I didn't expect it at all here, and they do reuse it in other sections, this idea of like cross-enemy interaction. I just enjoyed the setup here. My first experience of it was like, pretty cool. I'm still gonna kill you all, but pretty cool. I did find the entrance to the mud burrow, fought a few things, then my inventory got full. And then I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to go all the way back. I open up my inventory that is full, and a pop-up says, hey, you can click this and create a temporary portal back to camp. And oh my gosh, my little new player heart. Oh, I hopped back. I still thought that I'd probably have to run all the way back through the area, but then I see the portal doesn't close once I get to camp. I could go right back to where I was. And my little new player heart, on a free weekend with limited time, I smiled. I was very pleased. Such a small little quality of life thing, but oh, it had me grinning so hard. I'm so used to pain and suffering when I try a new style of game, and knowing I could just go back and come back. It was also nice, to be fair, to return to a safe place at this point, because I had a lot of stuff that I hadn't looked through. I was only just grasping the idea of identifying items as well. So it gave me a little bit of time to look at my skills, do my level ups, go through what was in my inventory, and grasp this identifying thing a little better. I had figured out that I couldn't equip things because it was saying that they weren't identified, but it took me a second looking at it in a safe space to go, oh, I clicked the scroll of wisdom and I put that on it to identify it, then I can use it if it works for me. This is also the main point where I started to really use the skill gems, because I still hadn't been like 100% on the use of those. And as I started to do that, I just felt my eyes widening, like, oh my gosh, this is quite a lot of stuff I can do in this little Path of Exile 2 situation here. I can actually do quite a lot with the things that I've picked up, and hop right back in my portal, back to where I left off, thank God. As just before I'd actually jumped in this portal, I'd met Beira. I'm gonna call her Beira. I don't know if that's how you say it. Beira sits in a little frosty ritual looking patch with a bunch of wolf corpses around her, and she is just aura farming. I love the design, the audio, just everything about this fight aesthetically pleased me. I love that she could summon wolves, and my personal favorite were her explosive circles. Going into this, I had leveled a bit, unlocked some skills, found a pretty great staff, so she wasn't too hard to beat. I did have to focus more on what she was doing and moving around the targeting animations, because she did have a bit more range than the Miller. She did put me through my paces just a little more. I was mostly spamming her with fire and my little shockwave lightning spell, but it did last a nice amount of time. I finally felt like I had an encounter that felt a little more boss-like, and it was nice. And I beat her, I did do it first try, and she drops a pretty cool wolf head. At this point, I don't know what the wolf head's gonna do, and I actually think I'm still carrying it around for such a long time. I might even still have it at the end of this video in my inventory, because I just thought it was cool, but I didn't think I could use it. So at this point, I've opened my whole world through the menuing, I've beat Beira, so I finally decided, right, we're going to the Mudburrow now. This one I felt like I encountered my first like challenge in terms of the area type. Everything before this had been really open spaces, and now I was like trapped in narrow caves. And I was panicking. I'm a sorceress. I like my distance. There's not much maneuvering room here. I did move pretty slow through this portion. I didn't want to die down here. I had a spell that would raise the corpses into scorpions that I talked about earlier that I spammed throughout this section for the fight, even though it was probably my weakest spell, just because it gave me the comfort of something like blocking the way while I cast other spells. It's when I realized that I hadn't built into this spell and that there was more magic than elemental. This is kind of when that all started to fall into place in my mind, which was good. I needed that. I needed to learn that that was a thing, that there was different kinds of magic. And this is when it sort of started to fall into place. Oh, I did this, which means that this is better than this. I'm still on my whole, like, I'll explore everything kick here and then deal with the boss mindset. So I explored the area. The enemies here, they're okay. I thought this area was a bit bland. It's just a cave. Nothing wrong with it just being a cave as such, but after coming down from Clearfell and Beira, and this being the lair of the Devourer, I had expected more. I actually managed to find the Devourer right at the end, so was able to portal offload stuff, come back, and take the fight on nice and fresh. I will confess, though, the Devourer is where I finally died. But during the death, I did kind of take in that I just wasn't super impressed. This area just felt a little bit flat for a Devourer that the villagers were so scared of. The Devourer had quite a few different attacks, which I think is the thing that caught me off guard in my first attempt. One of them applies poison. It makes sense. He's a big old spider. Of course he's going to apply poison. It was cool. I shrugged it off, went back, crushed him the second time. It was interesting to have this interaction with poison because it was my main first status effect interaction, because if there had been ones before this, I'd pretty much dodged most of them. So I wasn't aware of poison yet. The whole thing was just really anticlimactic. I thought to myself, I'm just a little underwhelmed here. This part of the world just feels really flat to me, and the Devourer is just kind of overwhelming, I guess. And it's just because they spent so long having the NPCs ramp up this Devourer as this crazy beast thing and the whole layer idea, that the way that it panned out was just feeling really unfulfilling for the hype that had been built around. If there'd been less hype, I would have been less disappointed. Once I got back to camp, go to Renly, tell him, hey, I killed that Devourer. He's very happy. So do you know what? It made up for the fact that this was not my favorite area, because Renly's happy and I like him. And he gives me another skill gem. Yay. Renly is kind of done here in terms of quest giving. And our next quest comes from my favorite girl, Una. And this is where I feel the plot really starts to thicken. I took the opportunity, since Una is the next NPC giving us quests, to ask her some of the dialogue options I hadn't asked her about. One of them being the Devourer, who we just killed. She informs me that the Devourer had the sickness that we were mentioned about earlier. I found this bit of dialogue really interesting because it's kind of the first time the sickness is touched on and how it spreads. And Una telling me it's everywhere. Oh, well, hang on a minute then. Like, every single one of you, the villagers who were already here before you guys, we're all at risk and all still are at risk of a sickness. So it kind of vamps up the pressure and the drama again of what is going on around you. I then take her quest, Secrets in the Dark, and she tells me more about the Count. The Count went into the Grell Wood. He went with his men, returned, and seemed to become more and more mad. He just became inflicted with madness. She wants us to go and see if we can figure out what happened to the Count out there. For Una, sure, I'll go out into a wood I haven't been to looking for a, well, I actually don't know what I'm looking for. She just kind of goes, hey, go looking for something. And by the way, this is a place where a Count went mad. What could possibly go wrong? So I decide, well, time to sort my level ups, use my gems. And then I try to figure out what is going on with these health and mana pots, because I realize I can equip different size health and mana pots. But I'm a little confused. At first, I thought maybe because I kept finding them quite often that they would stack. That didn't work. At this point, I actually tried streaming Path of Exile 2 until it just lagged out and honestly was just a bit of a mess. My computer could not handle both playing the game and streaming at the same time, unfortunately. But in that brief period where I was live, my chat did proceed to tell me, oh, you actually swap them out. There's a level cap on the larger flasks. Once you hit that level, you equip that flask instead of the previous flask. So I could trade them out. They didn't stack. I like the mechanic a lot. I like that there's this found improvement on the health and mana system for regenning. I just would have loved this to be explained. I clicked around on this for a hot minute trying to figure this out by myself and just could not. I understood there was a level being mentioned, but then I reached that level and just thought, oh, they'll stack. I hadn't caught on to it being like an actual replaceable piece of equipment. And I head back into Clearfell to go and look for the route to the Grailwood. And this is when I realise everything respawns. Yes, it took me this long. And then I see everything's back. My map's gone. And the realisation washes over me in real time. We learn. We live and we learn. If I play Path of Exile 2 again, I know what's going on now. So I pass through the newly respawned Clearfell again. But this time I don't search every corner. I just move straight along through to the Grellwood. And the Grellwood, I'm going to preface this, it was my favourite area. This area gave the energy my friend had mentioned. It was dark. It felt like any moment I could turn a corner and be attacked. The fungal zombies were like a standout enemy to me. The design in relation to the environment was pretty great. I also was a fan of the werewolves here. I just feel like the area felt really thought through and cohesive. Like, this is where he went mad. Of course, there's zombies and werewolves and it's dark and it feels so ominous. I was back in the game here. After the Mudburrow was kind of, this area just sparked life back into me. It was made even better because then you find the Tree of Souls. I found it pretty swiftly on my playthrough. And you see the hooded one dangling from the tree. Not looking good. I then read the Count's sentencing. And well, yeah, if I wasn't already this guy's enemy, I would be now. Like, sorry, you don't only want them dead, but you want to trap their souls too. Bit of a drama king. But I do now have such a vision of this character in my head, and I haven't even met him yet. It's such good lore sprinkling that's coming to me naturally through progression without sweating it out. You then add to it by summoning Una. We have Una in the wild. I also really like that. And Una thinks the Hooded One is still alive. I mean, he doesn't look very alive to me, but I just believe anything this woman says. She tells me the Count has bound their soul to the tree with his sword. Weapon foreshadowing. I like this. I like that we're getting a mention of what the weapon is he's going to have when I get to him. She lets me know cutting the rope won't work. I mean, I may not have played too many kinds of games, but I am a gamer and I always know it's not as easy as cutting the rope. I need to find ancient runes to break the Count's binding. So once again, blindly following the orders of this woman, Una, I skip off to go and find them because I like her. They're in Red Veil, so I work on finding the entrance. I bump into the Bramblegast while looking for this entrance, and I can't lie, I kicked his butt. But with the magic casting, the range, the kind of enemy it was, a little bit of chitin, woo fire, hey presto, he died. I did love the boss design, though, for the area that he's in. Something I really particularly liked about him was the purple running through him, matching some of the magic energy we've kind of seen in and around the wood. I am fluffing this area's ego, but just the way this area feels, it has me on edge. It has me immersed. I just really liked it, and I can't praise it enough. I just think this is really great design. I did also, while walking around, find the entrance to the Grim Tangle, but you can't go in there yet. I moved on. It was pretty obvious with the way this particular location was laid out that this was likely a plot thing because there's a lot of plot going on here. I didn't mind that I couldn't go in. It was the first place that hadn't let me straight in. And I liked it because then I realized I would get to come back to the Grail Wood. And I was loving it here, so I was not going to turn down a chance to come back through the Grail Wood. I do find the Red Veil opening, hit the checkpoint, I bounce back to camp, I do my thing, I'm cooking in the menu, equipment, level, skill gems, then I jump straight back to Red Veil. I take a break, and suddenly it dawns on me that there is a lot of map and points of interest on the map that you pick to teleport from that I have not been to yet, and I only have the game free for the weekend. So I'll admit, this is where I start to cut a few corners. I did not do everything in Red Veil. I just ran around, found the obelisks of Rust, killed the monster, got the Rune of Power, moved on. As I'm sure a lot of you know, on the last obelisk, the Rust King appears. Makes sense something would be guarding these runes. To be honest, I was surprised it didn't happen at every single one that I got a new boss. You just kind of get a mob with the first two and then the Rust King. This boss design, if someone has not cosplayed this already, they need to, because that's a slay design. This was interesting because the Rust Knight had quite a lot of different attacks. I finally had to dodge in a fight, which was kind of huge because I hadn't really had to use that yet. I did first try the Rust King still. I now know how the boss fights work. I can see the markings on the floor. I'm picking up on the visual prompts a lot better. We're rolling. We're getting the vibe quite easily now of how this goes down and how these boss fights pan out. So I'm getting better. I like that it's kind of happening naturally too. There's been enough encounters with full bosses versus like optional bosses that I'm starting to be like, oh yeah, okay. Even if I'm going to a boss for the first time, I don't feel like super stressed about it because I understand the basics of how a boss fight goes. I wasn't too bothered about having rushed the Red Veil. I know other people are probably screaming like, but there's this and there's that. I know there was other things that I could have probably found here. But the area to me just didn't feel like it was giving much. I liked the red for the Rust vibes, but it felt a little disconnected from the place we just come from. I didn't really understand this location in context of everything else. I did think the Rust King fight was really cool, and I'm glad I got to go and do that. But other than that, this area just didn't offer a lot to incentivize me to explore more. You're then prompted after the death of the Rust King to go and take the runes you have gathered to Renly. He turns the runes into rune spikes. So my favorite little thing about this interaction with Renly is actually he does go like something along the lines of, normally I would ask you what you're doing with this, but I'm not gonna, just because I trust you. And I love this little degree of Renly's self-awareness and awareness of what's going on around him that you don't often get from NPCs, because most NPCs just blindly let you do whatever you want. Renly knows you're doing something. He just doesn't care what you're doing because he trusts you. And I like that he acknowledges that he is aware it's a bit weird he's not asking, but is still just not going to ask. It was a really like funny comedic moment. I chuckled to myself. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was quite good. And then basically you hop back to Grelwood, to the tree, and you stab your little rune spikes into the spots on the tree. And this little mechanical moment, I loved it so much. So you basically go up and you click each spot where you need to put the rune spikes. I enjoyed that I got to do that engagement, because then it turns into this big visual draw drop moment. It's really cool to look at, but also you feel like you triggered it because they had you actually press the buttons rather than it just sort of happen like it does in some games. Tiny little detail. Something they didn't have to take the time to do, but makes the feeling of the moment really intense. As I say, my jaw dropped. I was so impressed. And here with this area, the story progression, I was like, yep, I can see myself want to experience more of this game past this free weekend. So here the quest continues. We speak to Una and the Hooded One. He's down now. And he's actually alive. Who would have thought he did not look very alive? So we're going to take him back to camp and we're going to figure out what's going on. So once again, I blindly follow my favorite Path of Exile 2 girly pop who wants to bring a random person back to camp. I do question how Una keeps persuading me to do all this, and then I look at her and then I go, of course I'm doing all this, come on. And if you're not feeling the same way, I don't know if we can be friends. You chat to her at camp while she's watching over the Hooded One, and she lets you know it should be a fatal wound. He's holding on. I don't really know how, they don't really explain it. But if we don't do something, he'll be stuck like this because the binding from the count that was used to hold him on the tree is also kind of binding this wound. So Una tells about an old tale she knows, which honestly could be entirely wrong, but we blindly trust Una. And this story tells about where the count has a ring. Una says, hey, go back to the Grelwood, that Grim Tangle place you found. Yeah, that place. Go there. And that completes the quest. This set of quest is just so good. Everything about it built. The suspense I felt progressing through this was fantastic. I do wish the activities we did in Red Vale had maybe taken place in the Grelwood instead. I didn't really feel there was a necessity for them to be in their own area. Maybe someone can correct me if I've just missed something. But I would have liked that whole bit to be immersed in that area. But aside from that, the way this questline went, the engagement with Una, the introductions of the Hooded One, the count has been built up so heavily in this segment too. And we've had some tidbits about this illness, where it's coming from. But this is the point where I started thinking, I want to buy this. I want to spend the money to pay the amount that they are charging on Steam for this game. First timers would probably feel this after this area. It's a really great thing as well because it's nice and early on enough that when you are playing on a free weekend, you're pretty much guaranteed to hit this quest, even if you only play a couple of hours. That's how you hook people. That's how you sell a game. Honestly, Path of Exile 2, great job. You really had me on that. I could not look away. I played this all in one sitting, this whole segment. So from here, I loop back to the Grim Tangle. I have to clear more things respawned, yada yada. But we knew where it was. I got there, and I find that now I can get in. When I found the place initially, it did trigger a quest that basically said the mysterious shade and find a way into the Grim Tangle. So I like that I was able to find this quest, and this quest fed into the main storyline. We're gonna open the Grim Tangle regardless. It's just kind of giving you that marker of, hey, you're gonna come back here and there's something to be done here, but you can't do this quite yet. I head in, I summon best girl Una. She's like, don't worry, you know, those things blocking the way. Spirits will sort it out. Give me a second.
If the Fae spirits are still watching, I believe they will help us. Please, wait a moment.
Okay, girl pop. I'm now just #1 stan of Una. If Una has no fans, I am no longer here. But after this dramatic animation, the tangle wasn't very memorable. I know I enjoyed fighting down there. I liked some of the practice on some of the enemies that was going on. But I'll be honest, to make this, I had to look up who the boss was because I forgot. I fought them, didn't really remember it. I don't know. I think the problem with this area in particular was I was very aware the Grim Tangle was a pass-through area. It'd been kind of made very clear with the way that it was talked about, the way Una sets it up is that you need to go through the Grim Tangle to get to the other side to whatever you actually need to go to. So I didn't invest much here. I did value getting to fight more enemies. It felt nice going through here, just kind of getting more to grips with the mechanics, my new spells, because I had quite a few at this point. It was very much the calm before the storm, and the calm kind of after a storm, because if you did have a rough time with the Rust King, you're probably kind of appreciating this little bit of downtime. I just would have liked it to come with some degree of benefit. I don't remember finding anything particularly significant in this area. The boss was okay. Everything was just very okay. It wasn't bad. I don't want it to seem like it was bad. It just didn't live up to the place that we just left. And I don't think it lives up to the place we get to. But I understand that for the way the world is built, these pass-through areas are important for that, to create this idea of how far you're going. I also understand that these areas are really good for practicing. They are where I was able to rejig my build and figure a few things out, and I did value that. I just wish it was a little more exciting, because the way it was presented and the way that it was talked about, I just was hoping for a little bit more maybe in the environmental side of things for the Grim Tangle. But that's just my opinion. I'm sure there's probably some people who actually quite like this area. Just wasn't for me. So I made my way through pretty swiftly, and you pop out on the other side in the Cemetery of Eternals. Another area that was top of my list. It's not quite the Grail Wood, don't get me wrong, but I love a cemetery. Yes. Is it a common thing? But did I just like a lot of the smaller elements and detailing in this section? Yes. I love the graves. I actually liked the amount of chests in this area too. I liked the way the tombs and mausoleum presented in the space. I will be honest, in this area is where my computer, despite it being visually very cool, there were a lot of enemies in this area. And I'm going to be honest, my recording for this area is probably going to clunk a bit. I don't have a bad PC, and other areas were like totally fine. But for some reason, this area, I was trying to mess around with some stuff and it just was not stabilizing until I killed some of the enemies and kind of took them out. So if you see some clunking here, that's why. I'm not sure if it's a me issue, a settings issue, a Path of Exile 2 issue, but just be aware it's an issue that I had. And if you're not used to playing these games and you don't really know what you're doing with your settings, you might encounter this. I tried tweaking them a lot. I just couldn't quite get this area to be as smooth as I would have liked. But back to the story. Waiting here on your arrival is Lachlan. If I'm saying all these names really badly, you're all just going to accept it, right? This man is Lachlan the Lost. Another cool looking NPC. I have not yet encountered an NPC in this game that I did not sit there and go, huh, they're cool. Lachlan tells us he basically lost his keys to the gate that he stood next to, and some dude called Draven has his family hostage behind the gate. Basically, he needs to find this key. Now, I am confused. He seems like he's been waiting a while. Could he have just found his own keys? Maybe. But now it's my problem. And you know what? Sure, I want to explore this area anyway. Don't ask me twice. I do ask him about Draven. Lachlan basically says he's a monster, but he's the monster that's in charge of this specific area. He invaded a village, yada yada, kidnapped some people, yada yada, people died, yada yada. You know the vibe by now. There's a lot of death. So we get a quest to find Draven, and to be fair, I also want to get past the gate, so do you know what, Lachlan? 2 birds, 1 stone. I got you. I did go back into my exploring every corner thing for the cemetery, partly because I wanted to look around, partly because I'd already spotted a bunch of chests the minute I'd got there. I didn't really trust Lachlan at this point. I don't know, he just didn't give me good vibes. He didn't give me the Renly Finn Una vibe. He gave me the I'm side-eyeing you vibe. So I went with the strat of just looking around everywhere. I also, while doing that though, did find some little bit of text that I just really liked on graves of people grieving the lost loved ones. And I think that adds a little bit again to this world that these people have been impacted. There are people who never thought anything would go wrong, who've been caught up in whatever this is. And again, it just triggers that reminder that you need to help these people. I do find the mausoleum of the Praetor, yes. They mentioned Draven was a Praetor. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly, so I was trying to dodge saying it, but I'm realizing if I just say the mausoleum, you might get confused. So I went to that place, which we will now proceed to talk as the mausoleum, because I don't want to say that word again because I don't know how to say it. Outside of this mausoleum is Draven's dictum, saying their victory isn't complete. Something about Ezamites and that the graveyard should erase their stain on the land. To be honest, I didn't really know what this was about. I did think I'd maybe missed something here, but I want to meet this Draven guy. So I was gonna go into the mausoleum, but then I remembered that I found a tomb and I wanted to go there first because the tomb was called the Tomb of the Consort. I know what consort means. And I was like, oh, this is Draven's assistant, friend, confidant, guard, you know. So I thought, I've rushed a lot already. We're gonna go in there. I liked this area. I actually liked both the tomb and the mausoleum. I really liked this area. I liked this one, the tomb and the mausoleum. I thought they were great. I really enjoyed the design. I enjoyed the little elements. It's everything you want it to be, but also with added interactivity in opening coffins and just messing about with different items that you can open in the area. Yes, we've got the stereotypical skeletons as enemies, but I liked that. Ghost knights. It's a stereotype that I will never complain about because it freaking works. Honestly, my actual main gripe in this particular style of location versus the other locations so far is in the scene design. There looked like there were a lot of places which should open, like a door or something door adjacent that I felt like I kept going up to or trying to fight my way to, thinking maybe it would open up and create a shortcut in that area. I would get to them and realize, no, there is no interact. There is no shortcut. It's just a visual design thing. And I did sigh a little when I realized it was a visual thing with no function. I don't see the harm, especially with one of the particular ones I found, of why that couldn't open up for that instance. It doesn't have to be open forever. The map's going to reset anyway. Would it really be a big deal for that to create a temporary path for you? But I carry on. I kind of bumble through this area quite a lot. I found it pretty tough. Again, we've got a lot of narrow corridors. The enemies are pretty strong here. Like, some of them are very tanky. So I'm spamming a lot of my electric sparks. But I needed this challenge. I was actually really glad I took this time. I had coasted a lot through the game up until this point, and I feel like this little difficulty spike here, it got me locking in and thinking more about the choices I was making. This is where I would notice my use of non-elemental spells, switching out my spells, thinking about AoE versus targeted spells. It got me thinking about how I could be stronger, I guess. And that's the path I needed to get on. No pun intended. And yeah, the game bullied me there, okay? These enemies were giving me hell. But I needed it. They'd given me all the information to use to get to a point where I could not find these difficult. I was just having to become more aware of what was at my disposal and its value. And this is where I started to change things up a lot. I wandered the tomb and ended up against a senior.
Let me teach you the power of the Eternals, Marek.
I'm going with a senior, pronunciation question mark, but the consort. Now, I don't know. Again, if I just missed it, there's a good chance I did. I know some of these lore drops are really like just a note that you find somewhere, but I felt like I had zero lore for this woman. I did put 2 and 2 together, obviously, and understood that they're Draven's consort. And it was a fun fight. The visuals were fantastic. I just realized the fight didn't feel like it tied into anything. I'd have liked more of a link to Draven. Maybe something happening after this. Maybe Draven gets weakened a bit. Maybe a senior would have turned up at the fight with Draven, but because you beat them first, they don't show up. I just felt like the reward for doing this tomb was not particularly strong. I wasn't super satisfied. I kind of let it slide because I enjoyed the fight and the aesthetic so much. Should I have let it slide? I don't know. But I do think there could be more of a connection between Draven and Asenia. And I do think I would have liked more intense lore here for these two to make this make a little more sense. But from here, I move along and I go to the mausoleum. It wasn't too dissimilar in vibe to the tomb. Again, I encountered things that looked like they should open but didn't. The difference here is I was obsessed with some of the enemies here. The courtesans and wraiths. I cursed one too many. Or many times fighting those blood cretins. They stressed me out. I did manage to find the hidden switch though. So I got some nice loot. Did take some of the stress away. I complained a lot less after that present. Thank you, Path of Exile. I just, after that, explored, looted, killed things, you know the drill, until I got to Mr. Draven. I did love the design connection between Draven and Asenia. The matching colours, the glowing green, the ghostly element. I really just liked how it all tied together here. I needed that because of this lack of lore. I felt at least the design was kind of telling me these two work together. These two are part of this ghostly area too. They have this green, like, spoopy aura that we've been seeing on a lot of the enemies. And I enjoyed this fight. There's not a good reason that I enjoyed this fight. I just did. I just enjoyed I can't tell you. I'm trying to wrap my brain about what it was about it. But I just liked it. I think these two fights were enjoyable. And obviously Draven drops the memorial key. I put her back to the cemetery and soon I'm going to get humbled really hard. Because I'm currently here thinking I'm challenged, but I'm not too vexed and stressed other than when things are jumping me. I got to realise that mausoleum and that little tomb over there were probably preparing me for the worst. I go to Lachlan. I give him the key, and I know that some of you are probably already laughing at me because you know what happens next. The game proceeds to tell me after giving the key to follow Lachlan. So I do. Lachlan reunites with his family.
What is this? Graves, Isabel, Torko, Callum, the family of Count Lachlan of Ogham. My family! This doesn't make any sense.
He then proceeds to crash out really freaking hard and becomes Lachlan of Endless Lament, to my dismay. I screamed a little bit. I was screaming. My cats were looking at me like I had lost my mind because I was panicking. I did not expect. It felt so out of left field. I've never seen a crash out like it, and I don't think I'll ever see one again. But I died so quick. I had to sit there for a second after I respawned and was like, so that happened? I was expecting a boss behind the gate, by the way. Like, I'm not completely insane. Like, I knew something would be there, but I did not think for one moment that Lachlan would be the fight. I genuinely thought he was actually going to be an NPC who would help me in a fight and actually would have some like cool skill and he would assist me. And instead he hurt me. So I regroup, wipe my tears away, sort my items out, check my levels. I had some things to use, to be fair. I went in very unprepared because I just wanted to see what was there. And I ran it back. And this one did take me a couple of times. Lachlan was not easy, my friends. He gave me a run for my money. I got there and sneaky NPC turning on me. Fair play. You know what? Fair play. At this point, I'd been lulled into such a false sense of security about every NPC because every NPC I had met I had liked. That this was genius. And it was a great fight. This area was just full of great boss fights. That's the main thing that this had going for it. The boss fights really leveled this up, and the way that just turned on me, fan-freaking-tastic. And this is where I can feel the difficulty really building up too. The difficulty is just scaling through this whole section, and that Lachlan fight felt like the pinnacle of that, like, you need to get good. Also at this point, I'm now far less trusting of every NPC except Una. I will always trust Una. I will follow her with my life. If she ever turns on me, I will just say yes, thank you. Lachlan dies. I get the ring that Una wanted ages ago. That feels like such a long time ago now. The hooded guy is still alive. I am so glad that this is just like a canon story thing. Because I tell you, if this was a timed thing, he'd have perished, deceased, gone, deaded. Because I was so slow. We got lucky. He's still kicking. So we completed Lachlan's quest as well. And we take the ring to Una. Una does more Una things. Another cool animation takes place. I don't know why she gets all the cool animations, but cool animation happens. Woohoo, hooded one lives. And they remind me of the little guy from Stardew Valley. I'm really sorry. It's just all I can see and all I can picture when I speak to this hooded person. Okay. It comes out in this next lore drop from the hooded one. He lets us know that the Count stole a seed, and the seed is what's making everyone sick. It's like a really dangerous item, and basically we need to deal with that because that's the problem. Una says we have to pass through the hunting grounds to the village and then straight on till morning. Well, where the Count lives. That was the vibe she was giving. So off we go again on a whirlwind adventure for our Lady Una. We head through another just passing through area. Yes, I'm still up a height from the Lachlan fight, the lore drop. Yes, I want a break because everything was so high for a minute there. And pacing wise, this would have been fantastic. But I'm playing on the free weekend, and this just feels like filler in this moment right now for me in my experience of playing the game. I found the Crowbell. I decided not to bother. The area was nice, the bramble element between the enemies, it was cool. I just wish I had more of a reason to be here. I liked the contrasting light from the darkness of the areas we've been in previously. I do believe Finn maybe has a quest here that I don't think I took. I dash through the hunting grounds. I ignore the Freythorn completely and just go straight to the farmlands that follows. It just felt like I should. At this point, I'm chasing story. I did stop once I hit the farmlands. I actually hopped back to the encampment and got given 2 quests there. One was for Una in the farmlands to pick up her loot. Of course, my queen, I'll do whatever you say. And Renly wanted some tools, which they kind of implied would unlock something for me. So I took this one because I was like, this is clearly like a mechanical thing. I might want this access to whatever this is later. I mean, I guess I'll be errand girl for a minute while I'm also trying to rush through the story and I killed a devourer and, you know, I'll go get your things. Don't worry about it, Pookies. Anyway, I jump back to the farmlands. They're exactly what I expect. Fields, farmers, dogs, werewolves. A small detail I really liked here was that if I cast fire in one of the fields, it would burn. And like certain spells would destroy the fields. It's a small detail, but such a fun one as a magic caster to have to think about. My favorite moment actually in this area was finding Una's house and her loot. Seeing where she lived and seeing the context of what it was like in her home before she had to flee. And now knowing that all these monsters surround what she called home and she had to leave something behind that meant a lot to her. I appreciate that moment I got to see like the impact everything going on is having on a character that I've really come to like. It made her story feel really strong. Again, boiled my blood about the Count making these awful choices. And Finn kind of mentions it earlier. He's like, the Count started going after people I like. And this is where we're at now. I'm in Una's house, holding Una's loot, going, I like her, and the Count has ruined her life. This was such a nice place. So I do that. I go ahead. I reach the village, and I do jump back to give Una the loot because it just felt right in this moment. They did a really good job of making me feel kind of sad about the fact that I had a hold of her loot and had seen her home, and so I quickly hopped back to make myself feel better and gave her a loot back because they made me feel like it was the right thing to do before moving on through the rest. Because like, I know it's an ARPG, but I guess like it is a role-playing game. And in this moment, I was like feeling very immersed in the role that I was playing as this sort of person who was coming and meeting these people, was genuinely feeling a degree of sympathy. And I wanted my character kind of to display that, even though it wasn't necessary. I'm sure I could have taken the loot back at any time, but the game kind of encouraged me to play that role of like a caring person who cared about Una. So it's kind of nice because I've never really been inclined to do that in a role-playing game before, to actually fulfill the role that I've created that my character has in my mind. So Una's loot returned, more menuing done. I jump back to the village, and the village is really cool. It's basically just entirely on fire. Everything's burning. The boars had me losing my mind at points, I'll be honest. Was not ready to be charged like that. Should I be more prepared by this point? I've played this game for a while now. Yes, was I? No. But with having the quest that I did, it did make exploring this area feel really important. So I took the time with this area. I had the one for Renly for finding the forge mission to find his tools, and I felt very inclined to do that. And then I also needed to hunt down this seed of corruption that I'd been told about. So in this area, I did loop back again to clearing the whole map to make sure that I was going to find everything that I needed to find. I wanted to kind of clear this in one swoop, and I wasn't sure what Renly was going to provide me in terms of reward for getting his stuff. So I wanted to make sure, as I say, that was an open option in case that was like key to me being able to progress or level up or be stronger. While adventuring around, I do find the executioner, the guy who tried to off us right at the start. And do I love a little revenge? Who doesn't? So obviously I want to kick this guy's butt. The executioner is such a good design. It just made me want to get him even more. I'm this little sorceress girl that he tried to off. Now I get my revenge plotline. He looks like a big scary being. I'm just a magical girl. Game on. I want to win this fight so bad. I also can see behind the executioner that they have a prisoner up on the wall as well that looks like a fellow girl pop. So, you know, we got to save her too. We got things to do here. So I go in for my first attempt with the executioner. Now, this fight was tricky, and actually less so tricky because of the executioner himself, but there were enemies to each side that were like hurting me too, and I just didn't really think about it or deal with it. So what I ended up doing actually on the fight where I won this was I killed the extra enemies on one side and kind of played entirely to that side and just ignored the other side and dealing with those until after the executioner was done. I didn't win this the first time. I did die the very first time because of this extra damage that I just was not ready for. And in the first run, I'm going to be honest, I held my breath for so long because, oh my gosh, so much was happening. But it was absolutely fantastic. This boss fight gave me the rush. I was loving it. I honestly finished the fight and I literally spin in a little circle because I'm so happy. I'm like, yeah, I did it. I did it. I did it. I was having a great little time with myself. It was so good. And basically then I free the prisoner eventually. Her name is Latith? Again, let's just not worry about the pronunciation, shall we? Apparently, she tells me the executioner killed Eamon. I don't know who Eamon is. Who the heck is Eamon? But smile and nod, smile and nod. She's sad. Eamon's dead. I'm sure Eamon was a great guy. She then tells me she's going to head to the Clearfell encampment and meet her there for a cup of tea and a gossip. Okay, she didn't say cup of tea and a gossip, but that was the vibe. She rewards me as well. So I get to camp and she rewards me for something she didn't even ask me to do. I'm not complaining. I love presents. but she didn't ask me to do it, so I feel a little bad that she gave me things. And then, though, she does decide to give me a quest. So do you know what? I take it back. You can pay me, I'll consider that advance payment for the quest you just gave me, because she doesn't give you an easy quest. She's like, lock in, kid. You gotta go kill the Count now. Have fun. I mean, understood, this is what I've wanted this whole time. I hate this guy. I've never met this guy. I hate this guy. I realize once again, I look at the clock. I've been playing already this day for like 5 hours, and I am running out of time to beat Act 1. And I want to do it so badly. I really want this final encounter with the Count and this final fight. I want this to go like out with a bang for me, this like experience of playing on this weekend. I just still have so far to go. So I go back, jump back to where I was, where the executioner had been, and I head into the manor ramparts. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. For pacing, leveling, etc., I get why this area exists, but it's not exciting. There's just a lot of enemies. The scenery isn't great here. I do like that there are opportunities to look down into where you're gonna be. Like, you kind of get a vibe for this manor that you're going to. But other than that, I just wanted to get through it. I did also have a little bit of a weird enjoyment of the little interaction if you did it with the gallows, and the man kind of flops off the gallows and gives you like a skill gem, I think it is. I just really liked it. It's something really silly, but I love little random interactable moments that are like hidden that can give you a reward. So this felt fun. This was the moment where I was like, maybe I was valid for the degree of exploring I went to earlier on. If this is kind of a thing that's going to appear more often. I would like more like that. If there isn't more like that in the rest of the game, please put more, because it's silly, but I like it. There were more notes hung around, all just kind of enforcing that the Count was getting more and more mad. He's losing it, and it's very clear at this point. He mentions that he decides every crime can be punished by being hung, like no exception, which is a lot. Like, I've already called him a drama king once. Maybe I shouldn't call him it again, because maybe I'll be the next one on the chopping block. But I keep moving through as quick as I can through these ramparts. I need to, at least, at this point, I've come to terms with the fact that I might not be able to beat the Count, because obviously they've geared this up to be the big boss of the segment. But I definitely want to meet him. And if I don't meet him, I'll crash out as hard as Lachlan did. At this point, I headbutt my way through the manor. I arrive in it. I'm just moving my way. I'm like just running into everything. We're going balls to the walls here, kids. Like, I need to get through this. I look around this area in the manor, and this is where I start to be like, damn, I wish I had more time. The place is so cool. The design, the blood enemies, the courtesans are back. I'm crying inside that I can't take my time in this area. I did still encounter the Candlemas boss because I wanted to read the note on the altar. I love every little lore drop, and I will walk up to any note that I can visibly see. And honestly, he whoops me so hard. I'm running around. I'm like, I even move into like another room. I'm trying everything, because obviously, again, this is a boss that I didn't expect to encounter. It was so much chaos, and I loved it. It was the most chaotic fight I think I had this whole time, but I was thriving. Considering I was like having a little bit of a panic, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to meet the Count, blah, 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 blah. This got me back in the game and enjoying myself again. I was kind of stopped worrying about it again. The design with the candles on his body and like some of them being lit is very cool. So in my brain, I'm like, fine, I need to beat him. I did die a few times to this guy, but it was so worth it. This was just a really satisfying fight to win, and I would do it again. I would do it again many times. I really liked it. The manor was genuinely really enjoyable. I really liked a lot of the small details. I liked going into rooms and there's like a harp and there's a big table with a bunch of like plates and pots on it, and desks with books and candles and fireplaces. I loved that the manor felt lived in, even though there were basically all these monsters here. It made me think a little about what is the timeline here on all this happening. And I never think about that much in games. I never really worry too much about the timeline, but here I was like, I'm just wondering what did happen? How long did this take? When did this turnaround occur? Because the other thing that you do get to see is that there is an area you walk across where there is a big hole in the floor. Well, more the roof floor. And you can look down and you actually see the Count sat in his chair and all these people working around him. Now, that's our first sighting of the Count. And I didn't like him. I do like that we get to peek at him first, though, before we're like thrust into a fight with him, because you know it's going to ensue in a fight. So I like that you can kind of survey him and be like, that's the guy. He's the one. I find the arena. On arrival into the arena, one of the things I really liked is that actually the lackeys come to fight you first before the Count or the Countess even consider engaging. I really liked this little bit because sometimes I get really annoyed that there'll be lackeys around who engage, but also the king, Count, whatever it is in that moment, just jump straight up to fight you, even though they have essentially henchmen to do the job for them. I like that they took the time to make it that the henchmen go first and then the Count finally gets off his butt to come and help. And I just like that. It adds a little bit more to this idea that this Count just couldn't care less until you're really a problem. And then what interests me even more is that he still doesn't jump into action. It's actually the Countess sat next to him, looking slay, by the way, who commands him to kill you. She does mention we have the power that they need. I don't know what power this is yet. I don't have this degree of context quite now. I like this planting of like, we have something special, but we didn't know for this entire rest of this act. It's only being mentioned now. So did nobody else know? Questions that I like to come at the end of an act to bring me into the next one. Also, though, the Countess being in charge did make me giggle. The fact that it is the woman in charge behind just puppeting the Count, I like it a lot. It made me mentally chuckle. I'm like, of course it's a woman. Of course it's a Countess. Why would I think this Count sounds like he can even do anything? He's just too busy running around killing everybody, right? Of course there's somebody else who's in charge. Makes all the sense in the world now. I do take a stab at this fight. I take a few goes. I do manage to get him to phase 2 when he turns into the wolf form, but that wolf form really messes me up because of being a sorceress. Like, the first phase is not too big of a deal, but that second phase is really tough. What I saw of this fight, I did adore. I like that this is a multi-phase fight. Like, clearly with when the wolf phase triggers, there is gonna be other phases. I did figure that out pretty quickly. After a few tries, I did come to the conclusion that there was not a chance I was gonna be able to level up enough and run around enough and do what I needed to do to get to a point where I could beat the Count. I don't have the skill level to do it just off pure brute force here, so I'm aware that I'm going to need to go and I'm going to need to go farm, level up a bit. I also had skipped some bits quite heavily, so I was probably behind on levels here too. And I looked at the clock, I sighed, and I went, it's okay, we did meet the Count. I resigned myself to the idea that we just couldn't beat them. I wasn't going to finish Act 1. Free weekend didn't help that this one did take place in December, so as I mentioned earlier, I had Christmassy things to do with my sister. I was delayed on downloading, but I still thought I played a decent amount. I played 2 hours on the first day and like 6 hours on the second day. I think I have a total of like nearly 9 hours in the game, but wasn't able to finish Act 1. I think 9 hours seems like a really normal amount of time to play a game. I know a lot of people be like, rookie numbers, I'd have just sat down and grinded it out for 12 hours. But that's not super realistic, especially as somebody who's maybe trying something for the first time. I know after the first 2 hour session, my brain was pretty fried because it was just a lot of new information. The second 6 hour session was far better because I felt like I had more of a grasp and it wasn't melting every brain cell to figure out and keep up with what was happening. I do think 4 hours a day over 2 days is like what a normal person would be looking to game, especially when trying a new game. I don't know. I think maybe what I would like to have seen, especially after reading so many people get to finish Act 1 who are like more used to playing the game, is that like they have a free weekend, but you can actually keep playing as long as you start on that free weekend until you finish Act 1. I don't know if that's a thing that can be done. I don't know a lot about how that would work. But I just kind of would like that idea that if you invested enough into the game, they could give you that hit of like beating the Count. And I do think if I'd have beaten the Count, I would have immediately purchased this game. I just didn't get that final bit of satisfaction to hook me all the way into making an instant purchase. I didn't get that little serotonin kick that you kind of get from beating a big boss. Also at this point, I did start to worry, like if it's normal that I probably should have finished Act 1 and my roadblock was that I couldn't beat the Count, I started to wonder, am I actually going to ever be good enough as a new player of this game to beat the Count And is that where my skill issue becomes an issue, and then there is no point of me trying to keep playing the game? It was like a brief concern that I had. I'm a good person, I will persevere, but I think other people, if they can't beat the count, will go, well, clearly I'm just not good enough at the game. There was also one other thing I did want to touch on here before we get to the end of this, which is I would also have loved something that kept happening during my gameplay that I still don't fully understand, is there was little icons coming up next to bosses' names, and I was struggling to figure out what these all meant. I would try and hover over them and stuff to try and get it, but like because a lot was going on all of the time, I couldn't ever get good timing to have a look. So I was never quite sure if these little icons were to do with effects that I was placing on the boss, or if it was resistances and information about the boss for me. Because I don't normally feel like games feed that information, but it didn't feel like it was happening from me casting stuff. Maybe one of you guys can clarify this for me, because I would love to know. But this is definitely something that I think, again, as a new player, I would love to have a tutorial on this. I did really enjoy, though, overall, my experience with Path of Exile 2. I will play more. I did thoroughly enjoy some of the areas. Una is my #1 NPC. The boss fights, some of them had me absolutely going crazy. Some of the aesthetic work, beautiful. And I actually think Path of Exile 2 has a lot of ability to expand beyond people who normally play an ARPG. And I don't know if that's their main intended audience. If it is, though, I think they should also consider that their audience could be way wider than that. Because as somebody who just is a real fan of like horror, gore, dark, fantasy-based things, Path of Exile 2 was really great. It's so dark. And I just think there's a lot of player base who would appreciate that and actually would be dying to try something new, something different. As I say, I'm normally super point and click based, and Path of Exile 2 really got me excited about this kind of theming in a very different way. Here, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please follow, like. I'm hoping this is the start in a series of MZ tries games as a newbie of this genre. If you have a game that you think is a great game in a particular genre that you don't think I've tried, pretty much basically anything outside of a point and click, and that isn't Elden Ring, because I'm an Elden Lord, let me know in the comments. Also, could you please tell me your Path of Exile 2 builds? Pretty please. I know I went really boring, and I'd love to hear like y'all's favorite builds, so that I can take inspiration, steal your ideas, and be less boring in the future. Anyway, thank you so much. Goodbye. Have a good rest of your day.